Okay, well, welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to today's webinar, Learn the True Value of BIM in Operation. During today's webinar, you will discover the true essence of BIM, learn how BIM relates to what you do, discover how BIM will make you more efficient, and learn what to do next. Today's webinar will benefit you by giving you an expert overview of BIM in full operation. You would be learning about the true potential of data capture of information from the facilities management industry, demystifying BIM and explaining the real benefits of the information generated during a BIM project. You'll also be understanding the information that needs to be requested at the start of a BIM project to ensure that information is captured in a format that can be used during operation. Today's session should last between 40 to 50 minutes. I will be hosting along with Joe. As always, we have a lot to go through, so with your permission, we are going to move quickly and take questions towards the end of the session. If you stay to the end of the session, there will be slides from today's presentation, registration for our next webinar with Nathan Doty, who's COO of a site. Nathan is presenting on Discover the Benefits of Collaborative BIM in the Cloud. A little bit about me for those of you who don't know me. My name is Barie Hasib. I am the Managing Director of BIMRec and AEC Recruitment. We are an essential BIM recruitment partner for individuals and organisations who are really looking to win with BIM. We're passionate about helping our candidates and clients overcome any obstacles throughout your entire BIM journey. We've helped many companies from small startups through to international organisations recruit from the bottom level all the way through to the top. We work exclusively with the majority of our candidates, but therefore they're not on the open market, and they're just simply open-minded, I suppose, in exploring new opportunities. A bit about why we're doing this. Well, as you know, BIM is a journey. Some companies and individuals have had fantastic success. Whilst for others, it's been a steep learning curve. Our goal is to simply help you win with BIM. BIMRec continually pushing the envelope, not only in BIM recruitment, but also in ensuring our candidates and our clients have access to world leaders in BIM. I'm very proud and privileged to announce we have Joe Harris. Joe is Chair of CIBSE and Principal Consultant, Sustainable Construction Group at BSRIA. Joe is presenting today on Learn the True Value of BIM in Operation. With that, I would like to now pass you over to Joe.
Thank you, Barie.
You're more than welcome. You should now be live. People should be able to see your screen now, Joe, so fantastic.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Hello and welcome to this webinar. So I'm Joe Harris. I'm a Facilities Management Consultant and Business Manager of the Sustainable Construction Group at BSRIA. My background is facilities management, and as Barie said, I'm actually currently chair of the Chartered Institute of Building Service Engineers Maintenance Task Group. I'm also a member of the BIM for FM group. And for those of you who don't know BSRIA, well, we are a member-based association in the UK, which started out about 60 years ago. We were researchers and experts in the building services sector, and our goal was to improve buildings. Our remit now is much more about the whole built environment, and for our members we keep track of developments in the industry like BIM, and we get involved in the working parties, give our opinions and those of our members who are as diverse as architects, main contractors, designers, consultants, manufacturers, building owners and all their supply chains. We're also publishers of good practice guidance, and one of our newest titles is the BIM Roadmap, which I'll explain towards the end of this presentation. So let's look at BIM through the eyes of an operator and work through. This is our agenda for today. I'm going to explain the basics of BIM, a little bit of the history, how it relates to operating buildings, highlight ways in which BIM can improve our FM facilities, and give you some ideas about what you do next to get on that journey. So the essence of BIM. This is the true potential, in my mind, is that the information we capture is of most benefit to the facilities management industry. So let's demystify BIM for you and explain the real benefits of information generated during a BIM project. My first slide, I'm sorry, is don't panic. Although we've been talking about BIM for, I don't know, 2-3 years, maybe longer, we're really only just getting started. You used to be able to go to a BIM event every night of the week in the UK, and actually you probably still can. But hopefully listening to this webinar today, you'll go away with some practical understanding of what BIM is and how in operations we can make it work for us. There's only a few small groups of organisations leading this edge of BIM. They're working on large projects with BIM at the forefront, but they are in the minority. The vast majority of us are only just starting to become aware of BIM, and it will take us a long time for everybody to get up to speed before it's widely used. So don't panic, it's not too late to learn. The important bit to know is that information needs to be requested at the start of a BIM project to ensure that the right information is captured in the right format so that it can be used for the operation. Our friends at Wikipedia have a definition for us which captures the spirit of BIM, but focuses for me too much on the model. But it does at least acknowledge that BIM is to be used throughout the operational life of the facility. Almost every course you attend or article you read has a different definition of BIM. In many, it's focusing on that 3D model produced in Revit or some other software. However, I think most parties will all agree at its core, BIM can be described as a managed approach to the collection and exploitation of information. And actually, in its rawest form, BIM isn't new. The philosophy has been around since the 1980s. And there are a number of high-profile projects that have used it in the past. It really is now about capturing, validating, and using data better. If we take that one step further, BIM is focused, unfortunately, on construction projects. And what is slightly neglected is this operational phase of buildings, which is where my interest lies and hopefully yours, seeing as you've signed up to this webinar. And I think we have a great opportunity to get better at creating an environment where we are better at information management, looking after assets. So if we go back one step and look at what all the fuss was about, as part of the drive to reduce costs and carbon in the public sector in 2011, the UK government published this report. It was a BIM Strategy Paper. It outlined a working group's recommendations for the use of BIM as a structure for making key information available in the right format at an appropriate time during the procurement process. The idea is that the information is produced in a form that can be used throughout the life of an asset, be that building or rail network, whatever. And that information is transferred throughout the phases of that project, from client to designer to contractors to FMs, without it having to be reproduced at each stage. Other countries, such as the US, are also moving along this path and have been for a while. And the rest of the world, its interest levels are rising. I understand that France had its first BIM conference just earlier this year, pushing the concept there, because they can see the value in it. This paper led to a strategy coming out from the UK's Cabinet Office called the Government Construction Strategy. The Cabinet Office in the UK supports the UK Prime Minister define and deliver the government's objectives, implement policy and constitutional reform, and drive forward cross-departmental priority issues such as BIM. Their role is to ensure the civil service in the UK is organised effectively and efficiently and has the capability in terms of skills, value and leadership to deliver the government's objectives, including ensuring value for money to the taxpayer. This also includes working with the Treasury to drive efficiencies and reforms across the public sector. In this strategy document, they identified BIM as having the potential to save money on construction costs, operational costs, and deliver better buildings to the central government departments. The key sections as you go through this report are 2.29 through to 2.32, if you ever wanted to pick it up and read it. But the detailed requirements about what it is the central government is going to do. 2.32 says government will require fully collaborative BIM, 3D BIM, for all projects and asset information, documentation and data being electronic as a minimum by 2016. So what does that mean? And that means that we need to look at what BIM level 2 is. So if you look at this diagram, this was captured in one of the publicly available standards that has been developed around BIM by the BIM task group, who took on the challenge to push the industry forward with this strategy. You will see over and over that this is presented to people to explain the BIM levels. We have 0 up to 3. And BIM, if you think, is about presenting the correct level of data at the correct time to allow the client to make these well-informed decisions. The process for delivering that data and the BIM level of maturity will change over time to the more sophisticated methods. We, at the moment, are aiming for level 2, and the BIM task group themselves have actually moved on to level 3, but I don't think we need to be worrying about that for a good few years. So if you drill into what level 2 means, the government requires its supply chain by 2016, which is next year, to manage in a 3D environment held in separate disciplines, BIM tools with attached data. It's commercial data managed by an enterprise system, integration on the basis of proprietary interfaces or bespoke middleware, and the approach may utilize 4D program data and 5D cost elements, as well as feed operational systems. As you can see, the operational use of the information was a bit of an afterthought, and as an FM, we really need to be pushing hard to get this to happen. So these are the documents that spell out what BIM is and how we work with it. PAS 1192 Part 2 came out in 2013. So that's the real start of this push. It builds on the processes described in an original British standard published in 2007. This introduces new concepts such as the Employer's Information Requirements, EIRs, where the employer expresses what information they require from the project and the format it should be in. There is also a BIM execution plan, a BEP, which is the supply chain's response to that EIR, showing how it will meet that requirement. The interesting bits for the FM community are in PAS 1192 Part 3, which was produced in 2014. Now this takes the processes described in the earlier 1192 publications and develops them for use in the operational life of assets. In turn, this leads to the use of new concepts, such as organisational information requirements. This is the OIR, the information which the organisation needs to know in order to run the business, and an asset information requirement, the information the organisation needs about the asset it is responsible for, and the asset information model, the information or data set which describes the asset. This is the important document for the FM industry as it sets out the need for this comprehensive and accurate information. The AIM, Asset Information Model, can be used for the basis for all asset-related decision-making. When you get down to Part 4, this defines expectations for the exchange of information throughout the life cycle of the asset and will include requirements for reviewing and checking the compliance, continuity and completeness of the data. COBE is the UK government's chosen information exchange schema for federated level 2 BIM, alongside the graphical BIM models and PDF documents. 1192 Part 5, that's a document on security. It's due out later in the summer. There is a draft already out there, and that one's coming. The BIM protocol, that's been out for a while, this identifies BIM building information models that are required to be produced by members of the project team and puts in place specific obligations, liabilities and associated limitations of the use of the model. The protocol can also be used by clients to require the adoption of particular ways of working, such as the adoption of a common naming strategy. GSL, Government Soft Landings, is taken from the principles of BSRIA soft landings, and it was developed to use within its own procurement strategy. The differences include the use of metrics to demonstrate compliance with the stated project objectives. The digital plan of works should define the deliverables required at each stage of the design, construction, maintenance and operation of built assets. The digital plan of work should be made available digitally to enable simple access to all stakeholders to make use of the system to give clear definition as to what geometry, data and other information should be delivered at each stage of the project. Essentially, it's about the data and information needed at what work stage and from whom. The last one, a standard classification system, is being developed to ensure that the data is able to be indexed and structured to make it easily accessible in a common format. The classification system should be digitally enabled so that it integrates with the digital plan of works. This should include digital capabilities, including extensive search and analytics to assist classification and to identify digital plan of work activities and deliverables, as well as more traditional functions such as costing and benchmarking. These last two items are available in draft already from the link at the bottom of the page, and it's currently being peer reviewed. So this is your chance to have a look at it and make comments. So let's concentrate on what BIM can do for FMs. As a member of the BIM for FM group that was supporting the BIM task group to understand our requirements, we initiated a survey in 2012 targeted at the FM industry. Overwhelmingly, 67% of them agreed that BIM would support them in the delivery of facilities management. And when you drill down a little bit further, it was about making better decisions around lifecycle management of assets, improving efficiencies, cost reductions, and even carbon reductions. So let's discuss what FMs do, because we're all a little bit different. Not everyone has the same responsibilities, but in general, if you manage an asset, you'll be thinking about occupancy, who uses it, what the environmental needs of those users are, how you'll maintain it, how much it's going to cost you to maintain it, and whether or not you're operating it sort of legally and you're a compliant building. And when you look at the information that is generated during a project using BIM as a methodology, that creates and captures all sorts of information about that asset and makes it available for us during that operation. It helps you to not have to recreate information every time you need it. Sometimes information produced in one phase can be able to be used in another phase for a completely different purpose. This saves time in reproducing it and also reduces the chance of introducing errors. We can take a simple example to illustrate the point. During design and construction, the size and cooling duty of fan core units is determined. What needs to happen next is that the cost to maintain and the tasks needed to maintain the design environment are required by the operations team. In this new age of BIM, we don't have to review drawings or O&M manuals. We can get the asset list and the duties from the electronic information generated. And later in life, when these fan cores start going wrong, we don't have to go above the ceiling to look at what parts we need to order. We can get that information from the data captured in the BIM process. So the benefit to the operations is the richness of the information that they receive. But I shall remind you again, you do have to ask for it, or you'll be given what they think is useful. And if we look at O&M manuals from the past, that doesn't really hit the nail on the head. But there is potential. If you can get FMs engaged at the start of projects, we can ensure the information we need is provided, and we can understand the user's needs and operational risks that are going to be inherited in our projects. Unfortunately, every building we build is a prototype, and we don't get the luxury of a sea trial with no occupants in place. So the more information we have, the better equipped we'll be to do a good job. What has been developed to ensure we keep the focus on operational outcomes is the process called soft landings, which I mentioned earlier. That's a whole presentation in itself, really, but I've included a link in the slides to resources that you can get if you want to know more about it. And the last point I'd like to make on this is that those of us who can have an understanding of BIM, I believe, will have a competitive edge on their competitors. Clients will be asking for it, and we need to be ready to help them. So in order to operate an asset effectively, FMs need a whole range of information, and all of these can be delivered in a BIM project if we just ask for it. So, question was, can BIM make us any more efficient? If we go back to the whole purpose of BIM, it's about information. It's not just about information like we used to get in the O&M manuals, where actually you might get a whole catalogue from a manufacturer on their range of products, and you tried to kind of guess which model was yours. In this new age, we have a trusted source of data which has gone through a validation process, and we know exactly what has been installed in our buildings. And if we ask early enough, it will be in a digital format that we can use and update as the changes occur, rather than that information getting dusty in the corner. Now, I know this is a busy slide, but you can find this with an explanation in PAS 1192 Part 3. So this is all about the flow of asset information. If I start with this triangle at the top, this comes from ISO 55000, or PAS 55 if you know it like that, which is a standard that defines an asset management system. This is all the work that all the operations teams should be doing anyway. From there, you move down to the operational information requirements. That's a point in time at which the owner, client, operator, whoever, defines what information they need to make the right decisions about their property portfolio, their facilities that are running. Then we have some external sources of information. That's things like BIM projects, new buildings. You could be looking at a whole estate at this point, but new buildings come in, or new wings or refurbishments. But there are also service reports and surveys that have been carried out by our suppliers. Then this goes into the BIM environment, which is the stuff inside the dotted line box. We're all going to create this asset information model here at the end. There is one complication in this level 2 BIM, which is the input from the right, this enterprise system data. So that's information, things like the HR database, the accounts packages that we all use, capturing that non-building related information that the organisation uses to effectively run and make the best decisions. So it all goes back to the operational organisation's information requirements. And then you have everything you need to make an informed decision. So how does it all work? Well, there is an abundance of software available. Each of these is split into the different phases of a construction project. But overall, level 2 BIM tools aren't really in this list. Not yet. And actually, you don't really need to subscribe to one of these frontline BIM software products if you are only viewing BIM models. If your particular role in a BIM process doesn't involve you having to modify the model, you can simply use a viewer, which actually is free. And the solutions are starting to appear in the marketplace for this level 2 BIM information management. But if you have a simple building with only a few people needing access to that information, a normal server with a defined file structure and procedures for accessing and updating the information, well, that's level 2 BIM. There are two aspects of BIM software we need to be mindful of. So our designers and contractors are authoring information, and the clients and facilities team are accessing information. They are very different tools, and from the facilities point of view, our tools are generally free, and it's the designers and the contractors that are paying up to £9,000 a license for their software. We all need information in different formats and for a variety of uses. What you need to make the project team aware of is that what you need as early as possible to run your building so that it can be delivered to you at handover. If you don't tell them what you want, you will probably get what suits them rather than what suits you. The thing to be aware of is that the model doesn't contain everything you need. During the project, these information sources listed on this slide will have been developed, and if you're going to run the operation effectively, I think this is the sort of information you will need. You'll need to store it, manage it, and put it to good use. This information must be captured in the wider information model, so it's not just about the 3D model. We have a very wide-ranging role in FM. We can have conversations in the boiler room all the way through to the boardroom. And once we have this source of information from this BIM process, in that information inside that dotted box I showed you, that common data environment, it can be used for as many things as we can think of. It could be the source of information for your CAFAM system or your asset register. It can provide detailed information on itemized plants or assets, and the model can be used for familiarization or safety training or awareness. But it can also be used as a source for strategic planning, acting as a visual aid when you go asking investors for more money. So BIM has the potential to strip waste from our processes because we are sharing this validated data and not regenerating it all the time. This is enabling us as operators to meet the needs of our users. There's no more searching through those dusty O&M manuals or reading faded drawings to work out where that supply comes from. We'll have that information at our fingertips. So, getting to the crux of it, what do you have to do next? How do you start this journey into BIM? Well, unfortunately, as I know, sitting on the CIBSE maintenance task group, is that we don't have asset management plans in place, or strategies sometimes. It's that triangle from the earlier slide. What we need to do is define the information our organisation needs. And to help you, we have provided a guide written by BSRIA in collaboration with its members, which gets you on the road to implementing BIM in your organisation. But remember, when you're sitting on all this wonderful data, you have to ensure you keep it up to date and maintained. There is also some help with defining your information requirements in 1192 Part 3. The ISO 55000 that I've spoken about, but also there's the British standard 8587, which talks about facilities management information. These 5 areas are extracted from 1192 Part 3, and they're the sort of headline areas of the information you should be capturing. And finally, the key is to define what information you want and in what format. The information is only as good as it is current. This information source needs to be kept up to date or you'll end up on this time bomb. Ensure you have the resources necessary to do this. To plan it, you can either have it in-house or outsourcing. Think how often you might update your data. It's not really practical to do it every week, so a regime that works for your internal process should be determined. So thank you. I hope this has been a useful webinar, and I look forward to answering some of your questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much. Yeah, superb presentation. Yeah, thank you. With regards to questions, you find to fire away, jump straight into it, so to speak?
Absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Do you know any life cycle costing soft for repositions CapEx which interface with modelling softwares?
No, I don't actually. I guess we can get life cycle data added to the asset information as we go through that BIM process, but it's not something I've really heard of being doing. That's where the sort of 3D model and the computer-aided facilities management systems are going to start blurring in the future.
Sure.
There used to be a clear break, but you know, I think CAFAM systems are going to change for the future, but we'll see where that takes us.
Fantastic. Okay. The 1192 standards address the strategy of application. Issues still exist between the various BIM platform vendors regarding data. Excuse me. Regarding data interoperability. Is IFC a viable data solution?
Well, that's a good question, but IFC is what we've got, and actually I understand that organisations like IBM, which own both Revit and Maximo,
yeah.
So Revit the BIM tool and Maximo the CAFAM software, have actually created a transfer button. I've not seen it in action,
right.
But I'm led to believe, you know, a press of a button you can have your whole asset list and your CAFAM system added. The one issue I still have with this is the classification issue. I talked about that in my presentation, and currently our designers and contractors are using naming conventions that really aren't recognised in operations. So organisations have to work on this and think about what it is, what information it is they want.
Fantastic, thank you. How can BIM improve use and operation phase of existing buildings?
Well, hopefully I've shown that today, and it is simple. It's all about making better decisions based on this information you've got.
Fantastic. Okay. So, and again, how BIM can assist in facilities management? Okay.
Yeah. No. Same thing. It's about the information. Yeah.
Okay. Does the added value outweigh the added effort, workload required, specifically in terms of consultancy?
Although the idea of BIM, as it started out in that strategy paper, was to reduce your workload. Sure. Because actually we generate information only once and then pass it on and build on it. We don't archive it and start again. So although right now it seems to be adding to our workload because it's something new that we've got to learn, actually the ultimate goal is it will save us effort.
Fantastic, definitely. How do you get a client to engage and spend on implementing BIM, and where is the best place to start?
Good question. There's lots of well, no, I won't say lots of case studies. We are desperate for case studies.
Sure.
There are some on the BIM Task Group website which outlines benefits and can be made. There were some trial projects that they tracked using BIM. Ministry of Justice built Cookenwood, a prison, and there's a Manchester library that has some good case studies coming out of it at the moment. But you know, still early days for that one, I'm afraid. Sure. You just have to keep going.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I understand that a major benefit of using BIM is realised during the maintenance and operation stages. How do you suggest helping a client who may not immediately care about that because the procures of professional engineering services tend to be part of the design construction departments? The maintenance operations departments tend to be underrepresented when it comes to selecting consultants. And what's a good rule of thumb when assigning percentages of potential savings to each project stage?
Okay, so no one's really come up with a figure yet for savings. One of the early case studies that came out of the trial projects had an example of a light fitting in an atrium. that had blown. Okay,
Right.
so you can work through this scenario. You need access equipment to get to the light fitting. You have to do it on a weekend so nobody else is there. You take the light bulb out, you find what type it is, you go away, you wait 6 weeks while you order it, it comes back, and then you put the scaffolding up again for the next weekend, put it in. And in that scenario, in a BIM project, there's no need for any of this putting the scaffold up to find out what you want. All the information is in that asset information data that we've got, rich data that we've got.
Sure.
So actually there's a lot of savings to be had operationally. So I can't even guess what savings they might be, but I imagine there's plenty to get.
Sure.
Put it that way.
Fantastic, thank you. How could BIM work for an existing estate rather than as part of a new build construction? Will the cost of implementing onto an existing property be prohibitive?
On existing estates, it's again going back to that triangle, thinking about getting all your information requirements defined, starting to develop your own asset information model. So a place where you only put validated current data so that you can start using that data to make better decisions. And then you can add to that as you go into a BIM environment with a BIM project.
Sure. Fine.
So if you think about that very complicated diagram and the 1192 part 3, existing estates can pick that up and start the journey.
Sure, fantastic, thank you. There are a proliferation of standards regarding the implementation of BIM, over 70 I believe. Does this not diminish the value of BIM in operation?
I think actually the only documents you really need to read are those 8 that are listed.
Yeah.
Everything else is probably just a bit of noise to generate. Sorry.
Thank you. BIM is a process, not a software application, but the software applications out there that support the BIM process do not tend to play well together, not even with other versions of themselves. This is a major obstacle and limits the value of BIM. Are there any plans to get the software vendors to get their heads together and deal with this issue?
Software, then that's an interesting question, because we are at the mercy of developers, unfortunately,
Sure.
and everyone is out there to make their own money. The one useful fact we have is that they must all comply with this IFC, which is a file conversion convention.
Right.
So I'm no computer expert, but I reckon that BIM, because it's about information and not the model, then actually we can go back to spreadsheets and hold our own information if these software don't start playing with us, really.
Thank you. What's the biggest risk that could cause a BIM project to fail to deliver a better operational outcome?
Actually, funnily enough, I don't think BIM addresses this issue around operational outcomes. Something we've mentioned today is soft landings, and GSL has put that into their BIM process because they recognise it as an addition to BIM. It's a process or even a culture change that is designed to deliver these better outcomes. Both the BSRIA website and the BIM task group have plenty of documentation on the soft landings. Personally, I think we will get better outcomes as we change the way we procure buildings.
Sure.
Moving maybe towards performance contracts rather than building to a specification.
Sure. Fantastic. In preparation for the data migration, can you please explain how the BIM was developed during design and construction, specifically what data was requested by the owner, and then specifically how was this captured in the BIM and by whom?
I think if you look at the 1192 Part 3 document, that talks about the importance of the operator specifying information at the beginning and making sure that gets delivered at each stage of a project as you go through the gateways, and not wait until the end to just receive what the project team think is necessary.
Sure.
So we need to take a bit more of a proactive approach in this if we're going to make that happen. There are templates being compiled on assets where manufacturers are busy populating those for their products so they can be added to the model.
Right.
But if you go back to my slides, it's not all about the model,
Sure.
it's about the information. So it's really up to the operations team to define what information they need to be more efficient.
Sure. Okay. What about the data security? I know you mentioned this earlier. If the SOS system will be adopted in future?
Yeah, data security is an interesting one. Part 5 covers that, and I'm not really a software specialist, but SOS systems of systems, it looks like a really useful idea, and I hope somebody picks it up, but it's not in my realm, I'm afraid.
Okay, fantastic. What effects has BIM had on the design on the design philosophies, especially considering the works of Zaha?
Oh, this interesting chap, lady. The 3D models that they generate, they would have been using for a very long time.
Sure.
But actually what BIM has allowed us to do is introduce clash detection and actually determine whether or not it's buildable. Hopefully, we can prove whether these groundbreaking designs are actually going to be physically be able to be built.
Sure.
So I think it's actually a benefit.
Fantastic, thank you. What are the possible issues you face when working with various BIM teams that are located in different countries? For example, if the teams are in Dubai, Singapore or London?
One of the big things will be about transferring data. If you think about BIM models, BIM software is very hungry and creates very large data files. So that will be an issue, but also making sure that you all agree the same protocol.
Yeah.
So talked about that BIM protocol document. That's the one that you'll need to set out and agree at the start of a project when you're working across countries.
Sure, thank you. How are clients addressing the challenge of aligning their asset registers to their information requirements?
Another good question, but one still that needs an answer really. Unfortunately, no two clients seem to work the same.
Yeah.
So each of them is on its own journey, really. All I can say is that if they worked with the published tools and the guidance, they would probably get a better outcome.
Fantastic.
Rather than in the world.
Sure. Okay, another question, interesting one I get asked quite a lot actually. How can I make my practice grow with the use of BIM?
Well, as they have said in the strategy document, BIM is a work process changer.
Sure.
It's designed to strip waste from your current practices. The idea is that it will ultimately save you time and effort on your projects.
Sure.
I know there is a steep learning curve and we've got new processes to follow. But don't forget, this is, interestingly, only UK central government is mandating this on their projects.
Sure.
Looking into the future, who knows? It's most likely to grow and we will end up using some form of BIM. It just might not stop at the model. I think we've got a long way to go still.
Yeah, no, thank you. What is a good rule of thumb when using the construction cost of a project as a guide to determine if BIM is cost effective for a project? In the transportation engineering world, it seems to be justified only on the mega projects, but I would like the trend to be that BIM is progressively more widely used on smaller projects as well.
Actually, that's what the BIM task group found. When they originally started back in 2013,
yeah.
They put a project limit of £5 million on central government projects and said nothing under that would need BIM. But actually, they've taken that away now, and they've said where BIM adds value,
right.
You have to think that through as a project, then use BIM. And if you stop to think about BIM, well, it's not the 3D model, it's about the information and the processes to generate that information.
Sure.
So actually it probably will benefit all types of projects.
Sure, fantastic. That's new to me. I didn't know about them taking away the bottom line, the minimum spend. That's fantastic. What minimum level of details the LOD of the BIM has to be developed, and what information has to be attached in order for FM?
The level of detail is all yet to be defined. There's this project ongoing in the UK around this tool called the Digital Plan of Work, which I mentioned.
Yeah.
We should provide the industry with some clarity around this, but actually the current version looks like it might fall a little bit short. So I'd say have a look at the link that I've provided and have your say. If you think the tool works for you, then that's great. But if not, then now's the time to talk up.
Brilliant, thank you. I know about COBE standard for FM. How does it work, and what are the benefits, and what is needed to set up for COBE?
Crikey, Kobe is such a big subject. I think we'd be here all day talking about Kobe.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go and refer you back to a previous BIM recruitment webinar that was Kobe just a few weeks ago, I think it was.
Yeah.
And hopefully you get your answer.
Fantastic, thank you. Good old Igor. How useful are BIM processes in oil, gas and petrochemicals, port infrastructure projects?
I don't work in those industries, but I think they're already well ahead of us, actually. They've been using 3D modelling for years to pick up scratch detections. Their operational information is imperative. You know, they get it wrong, they kill people. And I know it costs huge sums of money, and that's why the building industry is so slow to pick it up. Yep. But yeah, they've been using it for years, I think.
Thank you. At what point is the model fully taken into control by the facilities management team?
Interesting. Depends what you ask for and what you've actually paid for.
Sure.
As I said in my presentation, you need to work out, you need to work out if you can actually use it, whether you're going to manage it and whether you're going to update it.
Sure.
We could treat it like our O&M manuals and let it sit on a shelf until we need it again. I have heard people talk about that.
Right.
But that doesn't help us move forward very much.
No.
So think about the data that it's enriched with and then see what you can do with it.
Sure, okay. How easy is it to achieve effective collaboration between all parties, structural engineers, civil engineers, architects, project managers, etc., when this remains to some a black art?
You're so right. One of the issues actually it's still being looked at is intellectual property.
Yeah.
There are lawyers working with the BIM task group, which I'm aware of, so I'll let them sort that one out. But it is about sharing information, and I think those that collaborate will be the winners overall.
Fantastic, thank you. A couple of more questions, and then I'm conscious of your time. Creating BIM execution plans and BIM strategies that are relevant to our business seems to be a challenge. We need documents that are dynamic. Would you recommend using external agencies, consultants, to develop our own unique strategy for BIM in operation?
Well, I'd say start with our BIM guide, see how you get on with that, and then you can ask for help with your strategy. But ultimately, I'm of the belief that actually it's your business, your operation, and you know it best. So actually paying a consultant to learn what you know is actually quite a lot of money. So
fantastic.
A bit of effort.
And where can they find that? What web address can they find that information?
That's on the BSRIA bookshop. So if you go back 2 slides, there's a link in there.
Fantastic, thank you. And the last question, would you agree that a lot of the bigger companies have taken their own spin of what BIM really means, and perhaps the rest of the industry is in a quandary to understand or execute BIM projects?
I'm sorry to say that you're probably right, and that's the whole point of me actually making this presentation.
Sure.
Because we need to raise awareness of this with the operations team. They've got so much to gain from this final information, and currently those using BIM are using it to improve their processes in construction, not really looking forward. So I'll end on with a positive, which is that some of the enlightened few there are out there, and they are working really hard to work with their construction professionals and get that information. So there is movement in the right direction, but we've still got a lot of work to do.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Joe. There's lots of thank yous coming in on the chat box as well. I'd like to say thank you. Although your email address is there, and is that the best telephone number to reach you on as well, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah, direct line.
Fantastic. If you have any questions for me, or would like to understand how BIMREC can help you or your organisation win with BIM, please send me an email to barry@bimrec.com, visit our website at bimrec.com, or feel free to send me a message to schedule a call on my mobile, which is +44 077 25 325 010. Number once again is 077 25 325 010. With that said, thank you everybody for attending today. I look forward to working with you and getting better acquainted in due course. Take care. Thanks again. Bye-bye now.